The hall was filled with soft golden light, sparkling chandeliers casting delicate reflections on the polished wooden floor. Guests chatted amiably, some holding glasses of champagne, others laughing quietly at old stories. My wedding day had been planned down to the smallest detail. Every flower, every candle, every note of the string quartet carefully orchestrated. And yet, I had a gnawing feeling that things were about to go off script. I smiled nervously at my husband, Daniel, who squeezed my hand reassuringly. "You look incredible," he whispered, and I tried to relax, believing this was a moment frozen in time. Perfect, elegant, unshakable. But then, a sudden shriek shattered the gentle hum of conversation. I turned, and there he was, my sister's 7-year-old son, Max, charging straight toward the towering wedding cake. The cake, a 3-tiered masterpiece adorned with sugar roses and delicate pearls, was perched on its pedestal like a fragile sculpture. Max didn't hesitate. With a yell that made everyone's heart stop, he leaped, both feet, directly into the middle tier. "Mom said you'd laugh. And then she'll buy me an iPhone," he shouted gleefully, frosting smeared across his cheeks and hands. His little body wobbled dangerously as he tried to maintain balance on the squishy layers of sponge. The hall erupted. Gasps, laughter, cries, and camera flashes collided in a chaotic symphony. A few guests rushed forward, horrified. Others, like my Aunt Linda, doubled over with laughter. My sister, Vanessa, clapped slowly, a smug smile stretching across her face. "You should thank my son. He made your boring wedding memorable," she said, her tone dripping with satisfaction. I froze, the words ringing in my ears. "Boring," I thought, clutching my dress. "Boring?" After months of planning, after every detail carefully crafted, she calls my wedding boring? Daniel leaned close. "What do we do?" he murmured, his eyes darting between the ruined cake and my sister's triumphant expression. I took a deep breath, trying to channel calm. My hand moved almost instinctively to my phone in my clutch bag. I unlocked it and opened the family trust documents, the agreements we had painstakingly put in place years ago. Tuition payments, inheritance allocations, trust disbursements, everything. My fingers trembled slightly as I temporarily paused all 3 tuition plans that Max was enrolled in. A murmur spread across the room as people began to notice my phone, my serious expression, and the subtle authority that accompanied the gesture. Even Vanessa's confident smirk faltered for a fraction of a second. By 7 p.m., the situation had escalated. Vanessa had been politely, but firmly, banned from the venue. The event manager, a tall man with an impeccable black suit, approached us and whispered in my ear, "Ma'am, your sister is no longer allowed inside. The staff are on alert in case she tries to return." I nodded silently, still absorbing the whirlwind of chaos. The guests, meanwhile, had divided into factions. Some gossiped quietly about Vanessa's behavior, others sympathized with Max, and a few whispered about my calm but decisive reaction. Daniel shook his head slightly, still in disbelief. "I can't believe this," he muttered. "At a wedding, the cake." I smiled once, briefly, and closed my phone. "Sometimes, Daniel," I said quietly, "life doesn't wait for perfect moments. It throws chaos at you, and you have to decide how to respond." Max, meanwhile, had begun picking at the cake with his tiny hands, unfazed by the moral and culinary disaster he had caused. "Mom said I'm a genius," he shouted, frosting dripping down his chin. I couldn't help but chuckle, just a little. Then I straightened my posture and addressed the guests. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, voice calm but firm, "let's take a moment to appreciate that Max just gave us a memory we will never forget. And for those of you who came for the cake, well, you'll just have to tell your friends about the bravery of this little boy." Laughter bubbled through the hall again, softer this time, more genuine. The moment of tension was not completely gone, but somehow it had been transformed. And yet, I knew this was only the beginning. The evening was far from over, and Max's impromptu stunt had set a chain of events into motion, one that would test family bonds, reveal hidden alliances, and uncover truths I had never expected. The chatter in the hall had shifted from polite congratulations to whispered speculation. Guests huddled in small clusters, some trying to stifle laughter, others shaking their heads in disbelief. The cake, once a pristine tower of elegance, was now a sticky disaster of frosting and sponge, with Max triumphantly perched in the middle. I took a deep breath and walked toward the scene. Daniel followed silently, his jaw tight, his eyes scanning for damage control. "Max," I said gently but firmly, kneeling to his level. "Do you think we can get you out of the cake before the next course arrives?" Max's face lit up with innocence mixed with mischief. "But I'm the hero," he exclaimed. "Mom said heroes get iPhones." I exhaled slowly. "We'll talk about the iPhone later. Right now, let's save the rest of the wedding from being sticky." A waiter approached cautiously, tray in hand. "Ma'am, I think we might need a mop and perhaps a new cake." His voice was calm, professional, but the tension in his posture betrayed his inner panic. Vanessa, standing just a few feet away, folded her arms and clapped again, slowly, dramatically. "Honestly, you should thank my son," she said, her voice sharp. "You'll remember this wedding forever because of him. Not that it wasn't boring before." I turned to her, keeping my voice measured. "Vanessa, I hope you understand that your idea of fun doesn't always match mine. And right now, it's causing problems." Her smirk widened. "Problems? Oh please. You paused his tuition plans, right? That's your way of dealing with chaos? So cruel." I opened my phone again and scrolled through the family trust. "Not cruel. Precaution. Sometimes actions have consequences. You should consider this a lesson in responsibility." She narrowed her eyes. "You really think a phone and some tuition are going to stop him from being brilliant?" I remained silent, letting my calm authority speak louder than words. Daniel touched my arm, giving me a reassuring squeeze. "Ignore her," he whispered. "Let's focus on the guests and salvage the night." Meanwhile, Max had begun a second assault, poking at the lower tiers with his small hands, sending chunks of cake sliding onto the floor. A young cousin shrieked as a piece splattered across her dress, and an elderly aunt shook her head in disbelief. From across the hall, a photographer attempted to capture the chaos. "Wait, this is incredible," he muttered to himself, snapping photos. "Honestly, it's the most candid shot I've ever gotten at a wedding." I sighed and addressed the nearest guests. "Please, everyone, remain calm. The cake is temporarily unavailable. Drinks and appetizers are still being served." My tone was firm, leaving no room for argument, but my smile was gentle, trying to maintain decorum. Vanessa, however, wasn't done. She leaned toward a group of our family friends, whispering theatrically, "I told you, my son makes memories. You'll thank him one day." One of our cousins, normally quiet, finally spoke up. "Memories, yes, but maybe not the kind you wanted, Vanessa." Her tone was pointed, hinting at disapproval. Max, seemingly oblivious to the tension, looked at me with wide eyes. "You're not mad, right? Mom said you'd laugh." I knelt beside him again, brushing frosting from his hair. "I am surprised, but not mad. Let's just clean up, okay? Heroes need baths too." At that moment, a waiter returned, whispering urgently, "Ma'am, your sister is causing a scene at the bar, and some guests are refusing to stay if she remains." I straightened up, heart pounding. The decision was clear. Vanessa's presence was no longer tenable. I made a subtle hand gesture to the manager. Within minutes, security politely but firmly escorted her out of the venue. She protested loudly, but it was no use. Rules were rules. Daniel exhaled, relief washing over his face. "That actually worked?" I nodded slowly, watching Vanessa disappear down the corridor. "It's done. But this night, it's far from over. Max may have been the spark, but he also lit a fire. And I suspect more surprises are waiting for us before midnight." Guests murmured, some impressed, some amused, others incredulous. The wedding had gone from meticulously perfect to chaotic spectacle in a matter of moments. And yet, the mood shifted subtly. Laughter returned, albeit cautious, and people began to find humor in the absurdity. Max, frosting still in his hair and a triumphant grin plastered on his face, climbed into Daniel's arms. "I made it memorable," he shouted proudly. "Yes, you did," I said quietly, shaking my head but smiling. "You really did." But even as I tried to enjoy the moment, I knew the real drama had only begun. Vanessa's exit was a temporary solution, the trust actions were a warning, and the rest of the night promised surprises that I could neither predict nor control. And so, as the orchestra softly resumed and guests gradually returned to their seats, I braced myself for the next wave of chaos. Because in our family, calm weddings were never meant to last long. By the time the main course was being served, the atmosphere in the hall had shifted dramatically. Guests tried to enjoy their meals, but whispers and glances toward the cake table betrayed the underlying tension. Max had been cleaned up, though a faint smear of frosting still lingered on his cheek like a badge of honor, and was now sitting quietly next to his mother's empty chair. Daniel leaned over and whispered, "I still can't believe she pulled a stunt like that. At a wedding?" "I know," I murmured, pushing my plate aside. My mind wasn't on the food. It was on Vanessa, on Max, and on the delicate balance of family loyalty versus responsibility. It's more than just a stunt. It's a statement about who's in control here. Before I could continue, Vanessa's voice rang out from the hallway, loud enough for several guests to hear. "You think you've won? This is far from over." I froze. A hush fell over the room as several guests craned their necks toward the sound. Daniel's grip on my hand tightened. I opened my phone discreetly, checking the family trust once more. The temporary pause on Max's tuition plans had been noted, and I could see the subtle panic in Vanessa's legal team. Yes, she had won, trying to call and negotiate. I ignored the calls. Some battles, I realized, needed to be won silently, without fanfare. At that moment, Aunt Linda leaned toward me, whispering, "You really handled that impressively. I didn't think you'd have the guts." I forced a small smile. Sometimes you have to act decisively. Hesitation only gives chaos power. Max, unaware of the tension, tugged at my sleeve. "You're not mad, right? Mom said I'd make everyone laugh." I knelt to his level. "You did, Max. You made it unforgettable." He beamed. "I'm a genius." My smile faltered slightly. "Genius, perhaps. Mischief, certainly. Consequences, inevitable." Later, as dessert was being served, a slightly smaller replacement cake, carefully guarded, Vanessa finally appeared at the edge of the room, escorted by one of the venue staff. She had composed herself, but her eyes blazed with indignation. "You think you can humiliate me and just continue?" she demanded, voice trembling with a mix of anger and fear. "This isn't over. Not by a long shot." I remained calm, taking a sip of water before responding. "Vanessa, you were asked to leave for a reason. Max's behavior is your responsibility. Until you can respect the rules and other people, you're not welcome here." A murmur ran through the guests. Some nodded approvingly. Others shifted uncomfortably, aware that family tensions were spilling into public view. Daniel whispered, "Do we really need to escalate this?" "Yes," I said softly. "Because if I don't act, no one else will. And chaos has a way of spreading." Vanessa scoffed. "You're petty, using a trust and tuition as leverage?" I opened my phone again, showing the paused tuition plans to the nearest guests who had noticed. "Not petty, protective. Every action has consequences. Max needs to understand boundaries. You too." Her lips pressed into a thin line. You can't do that." "I just did," I said firmly, my calm demeanor leaving no room for argument. One of the waiters whispered from behind a serving tray, "Ma'am, some guests are getting uneasy. They've never seen family drama like this at a wedding." I nodded subtly. "Let them be uneasy. They'll see how boundaries are maintained. And they'll remember this as the wedding where chaos met order and order won." Meanwhile, Max, oblivious to the adult confrontation, whispered conspiratorially to Daniel, "Do you think she'll really get me an iPhone?" Daniel chuckled nervously. "Maybe, once everyone calms down." I looked around the room, the tension still palpable, but the guests slowly resumed conversations, albeit quieter now, as if watching a storm pass. I knew, though, that this storm had only just begun. Vanessa's pride, her sense of entitlement, and the family secrets I had long tried to manage quietly were now exposed, simmering just below the surface. By the time the music resumed, I realized that tonight's wedding would be remembered for years. Not for the cake, not for the flowers, but for the collision of family, chaos, and the power of decisive action. And somewhere, deep inside, I understood that the real challenge had only begun. By 9 p.m., the wedding hall had regained a fragile calm. Guests were laughing again, though the laughter carried a sharper edge now, like the memory of a near miss. Max sat quietly next to Daniel, occasionally licking frosting from his fingers, blissfully unaware of the storm he had created. Vanessa, however, was pacing just outside the main hall, her phone clutched tightly in her hand. I knew she was calling her lawyer, scheming her next move. My phone vibrated with notifications, missed calls, texts, and emails, all related to the family trust. I ignored most, focusing instead on reading the latest responses. Daniel leaned over. "Do you think she'll escalate? I mean, this is your sister." I nodded slowly. Yes, she's stubborn, prideful, and believes she's untouchable. But sometimes, rules have to be enforced. Just then, a waiter approached discreetly. "Ma'am, Vanessa's on the patio. She's asking to speak to you." I hesitated, then nodded. "Bring her in, but keep it brief." Vanessa entered, her expression a mix of fury and feigned composure. "I demand you reverse this," she said, gesturing toward my phone. "The tuition plans, the trust, you have no right." I closed my phone and looked her directly in the eyes. "I have every right, every legal right. You crossed boundaries tonight, not just with the cake, but with everyone here. Max's actions reflect on you. And until you learn responsibility, these consequences remain." Her hands trembled with anger. "You're cruel. You're ruining our family." I kept my voice calm, almost clinical. "No, Vanessa, I'm protecting it. Sometimes tough love is the only way to preserve what's important." Max suddenly tugged at my sleeve, interrupting. "Mom said you'd laugh, so I'm a genius, right?" I crouched to his level. "Yes, Max, you're very clever. But cleverness comes with responsibility. Heroes don't get to destroy cakes without consequences." Vanessa groaned, exasperated. "You're using him as a pawn." "I'm using him as a lesson," I corrected firmly. "And yes, sometimes family is messy. But I won't allow chaos to dictate my choices or my celebrations." Guests nearby had started to notice, some whispering, some wide-eyed. Daniel stepped in gently. "Vanessa, please, it's a wedding. Let's try to calm down before this escalates." But she wasn't done. "You think pausing tuition and using legal threats is fair? You're petty." I shook my head slowly. "Not petty. Necessary. Life doesn't wait for perfect moments, Vanessa. It forces decisions. Tonight, your choices revealed what you truly value: control, attention, chaos." She glared, but I could see a flicker of doubt. She knew I was right. Her son's reckless act, her pride, and her inability to follow rules had left her exposed. Daniel exhaled, trying to ease the tension. "We should focus on the rest of the wedding. Guests are looking to enjoy themselves." Vanessa's lips pressed into a thin line. "Enjoy? After this? You've ruined everything." I met her gaze steadily. "No, I preserved what matters. Guests will remember this night, yes. But they'll remember how boundaries were enforced and how consequences mattered. That's more important than a cake." Meanwhile, Max had begun quietly exploring the dessert table, oblivious to the adult drama. "I'm a hero," he declared softly, picking up a small cupcake. I smiled faintly. "Yes, Max, you are. But heroes learn lessons too." By 10 p.m., it became clear that Vanessa's attempts to manipulate the situation were failing. Security had been subtly instructed to maintain her distance, and the guests had rallied around the calm authority of the bride and groom. My decisive actions with the trust had sent a clear message. No one, not even family, was above accountability. As the music softened and couples began to dance, I realized the night had transformed. What had started as chaos, a cake disaster, a tantrum, a public humiliation, had evolved into a quiet, hard-earned respect from those present. Guests were laughing again, but now with an edge of admiration for the calm in the storm. And in that moment, I understood something crucial. The consequences of choices, when administered fairly and decisively, could turn a night of disaster into a night of lessons learned, for children, for adults, and for the family as a whole. Even Vanessa, pacing outside, could not undo what had been set in motion. The storm had passed, but its lessons would linger, shaping how we all viewed responsibility, authority, and chaos. By 11 p.m., the wedding had shifted into a strange mix of celebration and tension. Guests danced, laughed, and tried to enjoy themselves, but the memory of Max's cake stunt lingered like a shadow. Whispers about Vanessa's behavior floated through the hall, sometimes in hushed tones, sometimes outright. Daniel leaned close. "I think people are starting to see what just happened, not just with Max, but with how you handled it." I nodded, still keeping an eye on the periphery of the room. "Yes, but it's not over. Control tonight isn't just about decorum. It's about showing that choices have consequences. A sharp knock at the back of the hall drew our attention. A waiter hurried over, pale and nervous. "Ma'am, it's the caterer. They're saying there's a problem with the dessert supply. Apparently Vanessa called them, threatening to cancel payment unless they defended her actions." I sighed. Vanessa's audacity never ceased to amaze me. Redirect her calls. No one answers tonight. The consequences are already in motion. As if on cue, another guest approached, shaking his head. "I've never seen anything like this," he said, voice hushed. "At a wedding, and yet, I can't help but admire how you handled her." I smiled faintly. Sometimes admiration comes from seeing order maintained in chaos. Max, meanwhile, had decided it was time to explore again. "I'm going to the bar," he declared. "Mom said heroes are brave." I winced but followed him discreetly. He darted toward the servers, eyes gleaming with mischief, reaching for tiny pastries and champagne glasses. Daniel stepped in just in time to scoop him up. "Let's leave the bar alone, little hero," he said, half laughing, half exasperated. Vanessa, now pacing outside, suddenly raised her voice. "This isn't fair. You can't use the trust like a weapon." I stepped toward the patio door, my voice calm but firm. "I'm not using it as a weapon. I'm using it as a tool to teach accountability. If you choose to act recklessly, there are consequences. That's life." Her voice cracked with frustration. "You're destroying everything." A waiter whispered to me, "Ma'am, some guests are asking if she's related to you. They're shocked." I nodded subtly. "Yes, she is. And yes, tonight is showing exactly why responsibility matters, especially in families." Inside the hall, a group of older relatives had gathered near the side tables. "It's remarkable," one whispered. "The bride managed to maintain dignity while handling a total disaster. I don't think I've ever seen such calm and chaos." I let the compliment pass, knowing there was more at stake than appearances. Vanessa's exit, Max's antics, and the trust adjustments had created ripples, subtle but powerful. The pause tuition plans weren't just a warning. They were a statement that authority and accountability were real, even when applied to loved ones. By 11:45 p.m., a message arrived from our family lawyer. Vanessa had sent multiple frantic emails demanding immediate reversal of the trust changes. I opened them carefully, scanning each line. Her arguments were emotional, dramatic, and legally thin, yet her persistence reminded me how dangerous unchecked pride could be. Daniel shook his head. "This is like a storm that won't stop." I exhaled, keeping my voice steady. "Storms can be managed if you stay calm, act decisively, and remember what matters. Tonight, the guests, the children, and the family. All of that matters more than a spoiled cake or a tantrum." Max tugged my sleeve again. "Do you think she's mad at me?" I crouched down and smiled. "She's upset, Max. But you'll learn, as will she, that even heroes need rules." The music resumed, slow and melodic now, and couples began to dance again. Yet, beneath the surface, the undercurrents of tension, lessons, and family politics continued to swirl. Guests whispered, some admiring, some judging, all aware that this wedding had become more than a celebration. It had become a lesson in authority, chaos, and the price of choices. By midnight, I realized that this night would not be forgotten, not for a decade. Max's stunt, Vanessa's pride, the trust manipulations, and the quiet but firm control I exercised had transformed the evening from a traditional wedding into a defining family moment. One that would echo far beyond the walls of the hall. And somewhere in the back, Vanessa's frustration simmered, a storm yet to be unleashed, a reminder that consequences, once set in motion, are rarely contained. By 12:30 a.m., the wedding hall had grown quieter. Most guests had returned to their seats, nursing drinks or quietly discussing the chaos that had unfolded. Max had dozed off in Daniel's arms, frosting still clinging faintly to his curls, blissfully unaware of the storm surrounding him. Vanessa, however, had returned, this time uninvited, her face pale and eyes blazing with frustration. Security blocked her path immediately, but she raised her voice, loud enough for half the hall to hear. "You think you've won? This isn't over. You can't control me." I walked forward calmly, my heels clicking softly on the polished floor. All eyes followed me. Guests, waiters, even musicians paused in their playing. "Vanessa," I said, voice steady, Control is not the same as winning. Tonight, your choices revealed the truth about responsibility, about respect, about family. She scoffed. Family? You're destroying it. No, I replied, lifting my phone to display the paused tuition plans and the family trust dashboard. I'm preserving it. You've pushed boundaries, and I've enforced consequences. That's how families survive, Vanessa, with accountability. Her eyes flickered to the screen. The room seemed to hold its breath. Some guests whispered, others exchanged knowing glances. The subtle power of authority was palpable. Then, unexpectedly, one of our older relatives, Uncle Henry, spoke up from the back. Perhaps there's more to this than we realized. Vanessa, it's not just about a cake or a phone. It's about respect and honesty. Vanessa froze. Honesty? What do you mean? I glanced around, keeping my expression calm. Max's stunt tonight revealed hidden dynamics in this family. Pride, entitlement, and the need to be the center of attention. The truth is, chaos has a way of exposing secrets. Gasps rippled through the hall. Vanessa's composure faltered. The guests, now fully attentive, sensed the gravity of the moment. One of the waiters whispered, "Ma'am, people are recording this." I ignored him, focusing on Vanessa. The family trust, which you attempted to manipulate, isn't just about money or tuition. It's a tool to guide behavior, to ensure fairness, and to protect those who need guidance, including Max. You've been given opportunities, but repeated reckless behavior has consequences. Tonight, you saw them firsthand. Her face flushed red. You're using the trust as a weapon. Not a weapon, I corrected firmly. A shield. And a compass. You can choose to learn from this or continue in chaos. The choice is yours. Max stirred in Daniel's arms, murmuring sleepily, "Did I win?" I smiled gently, brushing his hair. "You learned a lesson too, little hero. Cleverness matters, but so does responsibility." The hall remained silent, the tension thick, until Vanessa finally slumped back, defeated. "Fine," she muttered. "You won this round." I nodded, satisfied but composed. Not a victory, Vanessa. A lesson. And perhaps a memory we'll all remember. Not for a ruined cake, but for clarity and accountability. Guests slowly resumed their conversations, some whispering appreciatively about the bride's calm authority, others noting how the events had exposed family truths. Daniel placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "You were incredible tonight," he whispered. I exhaled, glancing at Max, now curled against Daniel, peaceful in sleep. "Sometimes the hardest lessons come at the worst times," I murmured. "But the result is worth it. For him, for us, and for everyone here." By 1 a.m., the wedding hall had returned to a semblance of calm. The orchestra played softly, and the remaining guests danced slowly, a quiet respect lingering in the air. Vanessa had been escorted once more, this time without incident, and the guests recognized the boundaries that had been set. I realized then that tonight had transformed more than just a wedding. It had revealed the strength of quiet authority, the importance of setting limits, and the power of accountability. Max had been the spark, Vanessa the storm, and I, the calm in the chaos, had ensured that order and family integrity prevailed. And as I watched the final couple of guests leave, I knew this night would be remembered forever. Not for the cake, the drama, or even the arguments, but for the lesson that chaos can be managed, responsibility enforced, and family bonds, however tested, preserved. The next morning, the house was quiet, almost eerily so after the chaos of the previous night. Sunlight streamed through the curtains, illuminating traces of frosting that Max had somehow carried from the wedding, a sticky reminder of the previous evening's events. Daniel sat at the kitchen table, reviewing messages from guests. "Everyone's talking about last night," he said with a mixture of awe and amusement. "Some are impressed by how you handled Vanessa. Others, well, they're just shocked." I sipped my coffee, reflecting on the whirlwind. The paused tuition plans and trust adjustments had already created subtle ripples. Vanessa's phone calls and emails had flooded in overnight, but my position was firm, no reversal until lessons were learned. Max toddled into the kitchen, still half asleep, his hair messy, his eyes bright. "Did everyone laugh?" he asked innocently. I crouched down, brushing his hair from his forehead. "Some laughed, some were surprised, but everyone remembered you, Max. And that's a very special thing." He beamed. "I'm a hero, right? You're a clever little hero, I said, smiling. And heroes also learn responsibility. Remember that. At that moment, Vanessa appeared in the doorway. She looked tired, her usual confident smirk replaced by an uneasy expression. Max's eyes widened. "Mom?" he asked, his small hand clutching mine. Vanessa sighed, clearly conflicted. I overreacted last night," she admitted softly, her voice unsteady. Maybe I need to learn a bit about responsibility too." I remained calm, letting the moment linger. "It's never too late to learn," I said. "Consequences aren't punishment. They're guidance." And last night was full of lessons for all of us. Guests who had returned in small groups over breakfast nodded in agreement. Aunt Linda smiled faintly. "You managed to preserve dignity, teach lessons, and still keep the family together. That's impressive." Daniel chuckled softly. "All with a little help from a very brave, very messy 7-year-old. Max jumped onto my lap. "I saved the wedding. Everyone said it was memorable." "Yes, Max," I said, hugging him gently. "And your bravery taught everyone something important, even adults." Vanessa knelt beside him, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. I understand now," she whispered. "And I'll do better. For you, Max, and for everyone." A subtle warmth spread through the room. The previous night's chaos had exposed fractures, but it had also forged clarity. The family trust, the paused tuition plans, and my firm but fair handling of the situation had not only set boundaries, but also opened a path toward accountability and reconciliation. By mid-morning, messages from guests poured in. Congratulations, admiration, and reflections on what had become an unforgettable wedding. The cake, the tantrums, the drama, all were now part of a story that everyone would remember, not as a disaster, but as a testament to the power of calm authority and thoughtful consequences. I watched Max carefully, the tiny hero who had inadvertently sparked this chain of events. He looked up at me, eyes wide. "Can we have cake again?" I laughed softly. "Yes, Max, but this time, we'll eat it responsibly." And as I held him close, I realized that the wedding, chaotic, messy, and unforgettable, had become more than a celebration. It had become a lesson in family, responsibility, and the delicate balance between love, authority, and the inevitable chaos that life sometimes throws our way. In the end, the cake was not the centerpiece, the wedding dress not the symbol, and the music not the memory. It was the choices we made in moments of chaos, the lessons we learned, and the bonds we preserved that would echo long after the lights went out. And somewhere, deep in the heart of our small, messy, unforgettable family, a 7-year-old hero smiled, proud of the havoc he had caused and the lessons he had inspired.